Hello and good evening. This is Anthony, and I will be leading the discussion of life after pro sports today. It's said that athletes die twice, once when they retire, and then their actual death. So it's pretty obvious that most athletes don't consider retirement an option. It's as if they feel a loss of identity when they retire, and a long, tough process of going from star athlete to regular person. For most, retirement isn't the only option. Some are endorsed and do big time commercials for big companies. But most athletes aren't guided properly and don't know how to work well with money. Even though some sports have mandatory events that they must attend, trying to help them figure out their finances, most athletes do not pay attention. There needs to be more guidance because athletes are being taken advantage of. Most retirees go bankrupt after 2 years of retirement. It's easy to lose control when you're used to $100,000 to a $750,000 salary, and it suddenly changes to $0. People call athletes generic lotto winners because most athletes are irresponsible and fail to continue to provide.
It's a great time to be a professional athlete. Just look at how much this guy's making.
The Miami Marlins reeling in Giancarlo Stanton with a jaw-dropping deal worth more than $300 million.
Wow, $300 million. That's like a whale ate a bank. You might think that being a professional athlete means you're set for life, but for every player like Stanton, there's a Smalls from the Sandlot. Killing me, Smalls. So what's it really like to be a pro athlete after your sports career is over? Well, it's bad news. Even though the news is filled with athletes who make more money than entire countries, I'm looking at you, Azerbaijan. It's not the reality for most players. According to the NFL Players Association, the average professional football career only lasts about 3.5 years. This is why we hear so many stories of athletes going bankrupt. A few years as a professional athlete doesn't make you Jimmy Buffett. I mean, Warren. Although if you were Jimmy Buffett, that'd be pretty cool. This means athletes have to find other ways to pay the bills. They have a few options here. Option 1 is endorsements. Every athlete loves endorsements. Tiger Woods made over $78 million last year, partially from endorsements, and that's after blowing his reputation. Not to mention being blown. But only a small percentage of athletes reach enough fame to appear in great movies like this.
Ready? Yeah!
Or even greater ads like these.
This is one 6-footer I can't handle one-on-one. Ladies, let's have a party.
So what can the rest do? Well, there's always option 2. Bankruptcy. Sure, pro athletes can make hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars annually, but they spend just as much. I know where they're coming from. One time I had a winning lotto ticket, and do you know what I did with the money? I bought more lotto tickets. When looking at the NFL, an estimated 78% of athletes are facing bankruptcy or detrimental financial stress within 2 years of their career's end. They're losing money almost as fast as the Social Security Trust Fund. That's a nerd joke. So most pro athletes choose option 3, transitioning to another career. But finding a new career can be rough. Think about it. If you're a pro athlete, you were basically a celebrity in your high school. So you probably haven't worked a real job since you delivered pizza back in high school. So a lot of athletes start their own thing, like Chicago Blackhawks player Brian Bickle. In contrast to Michael Vick's love for dogs, Bickle's Canine Crush is a foundation he started to save pit bulls. You don't hear about these athletes, but they represent the majority of people who enter professional sports. Here to help us learn more about what it's like to transition out of pro sports is Mac Faulkner, former pro hockey player and executive director of Hockey Players for Kids. Hi, Mac. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Let's start off with a really important question. You used to be a pro hockey player, right?
Yes.
Great. How many teeth do you have?
My front 4 are all caps. They're all
okay.
just posts with caps on them.
Related or not related to your hockey career?
Related to my hockey career.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been retired from hockey?
About 7 months.
Okay. And what made you want to transition from the pro sports career to post-sports career?
Yeah. Want to transition and have to transition are 2 different questions. You understand that, all right, you can't do this forever, so you start to prospect on what do I want to do next? But it's a difficult question because you've been playing hockey since you were 3, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of somewhat what you defined yourself by. And you go into the room, you see all the fellas, like it's a very different transition, but it's one that every player inevitably at some point has to make.
So tell us about your NGO, Hockey Players for Kids.
We take pro hockey players, and now we work with collegiate teams. We work with the Harvard women's team, and we have 2 programs: Young Readers, where we go into elementary schools and we tell the kids, like, how reading is a big part of just the whole learning process in life. And we said, what do you do? What do you think we do after hockey? And they're like, Xbox and this.
Yeah,
We're like,
yeah.
we actually read. And they're like,
Oh, that's
what?
actually what you do? Okay.
Yeah, and then
Oh,
we
that's good
catch
to
them.
know.
And we try to like
Yeah.
switch the whole, because
You caught me.
yeah. Well, your parents and your teachers always tell you to read. The last thing you think in the world is a pro hockey player who's missing a couple teeth of the black eye is like, I read too. And they're like, what?
Speaking of reading,
Okay.
which I think is a great cause, I have a little test for you. Have you ever had a concussion before when you were playing hockey?
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately? Okay, so we're not going to make light of concussions, but I know that you go to Harvard now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a stereotype about hockey players that I'd like to test to see whether or not it's true. I have some words here that I was hoping you could read for us, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so just look at this. Can you read this, please?
Can I sound it out?
Do whatever you need to do, Mac.
Cat.
Very good.
Okay,
That's
okay.
correct. That's correct. Here's the next word.
Parmesan.
That's correct. And here's the... What? I can't even read this one.
You got it upside down. It's Zamboni.
Oh! Okay. You pass. Very good.
Now, do you know what a Zamboni is?
I do. I sure do. So that's Mac Faulkner for us. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time to educate us about transitions. And if anyone wanted to find more information about the NGO that you work with, where could they go?
Yeah, sure. Check us out on Twitter at HP4K or www.hp4k.org.
There you go. Mac Faulkner, ladies and gentlemen. That is our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week for more bad news. And until then, here's a Zamboni. I mean, here's something good. Thanks.
Also on the middle vocalist is Mac Faulkner, former pro hockey player and executive director of Hockey Players for Kids. Mac, get to the chopper!